Morning, church. Happy Sabbath. I debated on whether or not to put what we were studying from in the schedule because the book of Ecclesiastes doesn't really rally people to some sort of fervor, to be able to come and learn. When Marilyn asked, "What are you teaching about?" and I said, "Ecclesiastes," the look on her face is exactly what everybody does. Oh, cool. That's the. I know you did. I'm just kidding. But usually, Marilyn notwithstanding, most people, when you look at the book of Ecclesiastes, it's not. If Solomon were to pitch this to Simon and Schuster, it's not a book that would be published today, except for the juicy parts. But the reason that Solomon wrote it, and I think that reasoning comes across in his writing, it wouldn't be published today. Nobody would be interested in why he's writing it and what he has to say. And I'd like to explore that this week, if you could spend some time with me in the book of Ecclesiastes. I had a church member who, unfortunately, by the time I had gotten to the church, I didn't get to know very well because he was already dying. He's dying of a brain tumor. So the first time that I ever visited him, we just talked and we talked a little bit. And he was the first one, he's the very first church member that ever brought up the idea of, why don't we study more from the book of Ecclesiastes? Because he loved it. He really did. And somewhere along the line before he died, he made me promise that that's what I was going to read from at his funeral. And I think he did it because probably he didn't know me and he really didn't like me that much. Because outside maybe of this one text, Ecclesiastes is not what we quote at funerals. It's not the ones that you hear, right? Because of what it says. And so I'm going to start with a little bit of history. I want to get an idea of Solomon, and I hope that this first one will give you an overview and give us some principles, if you will, some things that we can stand on as we study this week the book of Ecclesiastes. Okay? A little bit of history. Just personal history that I've kind of come across about kings and kingdoms. Not modern day, but earthly kings and kingdoms. And I want to let you know that, by Jesus' day, the kings of Israel were enforcing Roman rule on a local level. That was their job. They were Roman puppets, basically. We know of Herod the Great mainly because of one event. We're acquainted with Herod the Great because of one event in the Bible, and what was that? That he ordered the massacre of every baby boy in northern Judah, in Bethlehem, okay, under the age of 2. All because he heard one thing from these 3 strange sages that had come from the east, and that was that a new king was what? A new king was born. That's how we're introduced to a king in Israel. That's how we're introduced to Herod the Great. That's how we know mostly of this king. I'm told that secular history does not refer to this particular atrocity. No one acquainted, though, with Herod's life doubts that it happened. Even historians who don't claim to be Christians read the history of King Herod, and when they're told of the Bible story about this, they have no doubt that it happened. Because of who Herod was. Okay? He killed 2 brothers-in-law. He had his own wife, Mariamne, executed. 2 of his own sons. And for 5 days before his death, he ordered the arrest of many citizens and decreed that they be executed on the day of his death in order to ensure a proper mourning throughout the country. Scarcely a day passed, in fact, without an execution under Herod's regime. And he ruled Israel for well over 40 years. What is said in the annals of the Roman Senate about Herod is this. A general who was giving a report after returning from Israel said this about Herod. He looked at the Roman Senate and said, "You don't turn your back on this one." And it was warned. 800 years before, a prophet in Israel said this. He said, "These will be the ways of the king who will reign over you." And then there is this long list as to what a king will do. These will be the ways that a king, he will draft your sons and assign them to his chariots and his charioteers, making them run before. Some will be generals, some will be captains, some will be forced to plow in his fields, harvest his crops, and some will make his weapons and chariot equipment. And by the way, girls, he'll take your daughters too. Everybody will be enlisted to serve who? You think that's what God had in mind for Israel in the land of milk and honey? But they're demanding one, aren't they? They're demanding one. That's why this prophet has to come along and tell them, okay, I'll give you one, but here is the way that it's going to be. And herein lies. Here we are as to where earthly kings put their focus. The primary focus of an earthly king is only one. And you know what that is, right? To stay on the throne. That's the very primary focus that a king does. Even a good king, even a godly, maybe not godly, but even a benevolent king knows that he can do none of his benevolence if he's not where? If he's not on the throne. He has to be on the throne. So his primary objective is to remain on the throne. That fear that someone could usurp his throne, that fear is what drives all history's kings, no matter who they are. Some handle it better than others, but they've all been driven by it to a certain extent. So today we meet a different kind of king. Different because he says so. Different because he sees himself as what he hopes to be, and that is a different kind of king. Solomon in the book of Ecclesiastes calls himself the Koheleth. The Koheleth is this. It's a teacher. He starts the book of Ecclesiastes this way. The words of the Koheleth. The words of the Koheleth, son of David, king in Jerusalem. There is no doubt that when he writes this, he is king. That's his title, King Solomon. And that's how everyone knows him. But when he began the book of Ecclesiastes, he gave himself another title. And that title is Koheleth. Simply put, it means teacher, but it also means the assembler. He brings people together and he says, I, the king, am the Koheleth. I've got something to say. I've got something to teach you. So guess who he gathers today to hear the words of the Koheleth? You and me. The book of Ecclesiastes is the words. So when I say Koheleth, it's according to the teacher, according to the preacher. That's how he begins this book. The words according to who? The Koheleth. According to the teacher. So this is according to the teacher, according to the preacher. By the way, this drive to stay on the throne, this drive to seek out people who would usurp it, how did Solomon handle it? There was one guy that laid claim to his throne before he could take it. Do you remember who it was? His own brother, Adonijah. And why did Adonijah feel that he had a claim to the throne? Because he was older. He wasn't the oldest. It just happens that his two older brothers murdered each other, right? Or were murdered. Okay? But he felt that he had. And he almost got it in a military coup. David's military commander was the one that wanted to put him on the throne. And so it wasn't just a military coup, it was also a religious coup. The high priest was on his side too. And the first they hear about it is that they've taken Adonijah out of Jerusalem and they're holding a banquet for him to put him on the throne. This is when Nathan hears about it. And they immediately go to David. Well, actually, no. Immediately went to Bathsheba. Bathsheba's the one that comes to David. And then it's David that says, no, you guys got it wrong. God told me my son Solomon would be on the throne. So Adonijah is the one who should be, if you will, according to the world standards. God says, no, Solomon will be. So now we've got a problem. Solomon takes the throne. Adonijah is scared for his life. As a matter of fact, he runs into the temple and puts his hands on the altar when he knows that he's been in the wrong here. And what does Solomon do? Solomon at first says, everything's cool, man. Nobody dies today. Serve the Lord, serve me, and everything is cool. And then there's this story, I don't know how many days later, that Adonijah goes to Bathsheba and asks a favor. Okay, asks a favor. And the favor is, can I have David's nurse, Abishag? Remember, when David got old, they couldn't keep him warm. They hired this woman to keep him warm. By the way, we're going to talk a lot about the Bible's treatment of women. Don't worry, it's gonna come up. So I'm real sorry, y'all. I'm looking at the ladies, and I am sorry. But really, truly, the Bible just you get it in the teeth in the Bible, and I'm really sorry for that. Okay, but Adonijah wants her. All right, and then when Solomon finds out about it, what happened? Okay. Therefore, as the Lord lives, who's established me and placed me on the throne of my father David, and who's made me a house as he has promised, today Adonijah shall be what? Shall be put to death. I got a feeling Solomon was waiting for this opportunity. Because it went from everything's cool, man, everything's cool, to this. So even Solomon is forced, in order to stay on the throne, he has to murder his own what? His own brother. So even the Koheleth, even though he is the Koheleth and king, maybe he didn't handle it too well either. Okay. See, I'd expect this from Saul, wouldn't you? I expect this from Saul. Okay. I expect it from Herod. But the Koheleth said, the Koheleth was supposed to be something different. Solomon was supposed to be a different king. How do we know that Solomon was supposed to be a different king? Because he asked to be. Not just that he was appointed by God, but once he was appointed, he asked to be special. I want to make a difference, he said. He had given Solomon something that he had never given any king simply because Solomon had asked for it. Remember what that was? God said, I do now according to your word. Indeed, I give you a wise and discerning what? Mind. And no one like you has been before, and no one like you shall arise after. This is how we know that the Bible calls Solomon the wisest man who ever what? Who ever lived. Okay? Because what Solomon sees is maybe what this wisdom can do on the throne. Because he's witnessed what happens when ordinary guys are put on the throne. Right? Even his father. Even his father. This is why Solomon was supposed to be special. He asked to be special. I give him the benefit of the doubt. He wanted to make a difference. He wanted to serve. He truly thought he could make a difference in the way things are done, especially in the way that kings do things. And that's where we kind of the background that we have of this. Unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it, okay, God also made him the wealthiest man who ever lived. He said, because you didn't ask for riches and power, guess what? I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to give it to you. Because maybe your wisdom can handle it. Maybe your wisdom can do something with it. So Solomon is given the keys to the kingdom to make a difference in this world. And to make it different. I picture what he could have done. So it's not just innovative ideas that he brings, but he brings wealth and power in order to make those ideas a reality. Today, people have wonderful, beautiful ideas, but what do we need to make it happen? We need the wealth and the power to do so, right? It's one thing to have ideas. It's another thing to be able to get something done, to be able to get it done. So he's got it. He's got everything that every NGO going to Bolivia would hope for. Right? Unfortunately, this king, even though there have only been 3 of them now, Israel seems to begin to live their lives vicariously through this king. That wealth and everything becomes theirs, even though it's not really theirs. So one of my best friends, that's the way he puts it, is that every time Israel thinks of Solomon, they say, that's us. And they live vicariously through them. Unfortunately, they do it with their relationship with God, too. They're already living vicariously in their relationship with God through a priesthood. Now they're doing it with priests and what? And kings. By the way, it was the other reason why Samuel told them, you don't want a king. Because now it becomes spiritual. Now the spiritual life is completely locked up into the secular life in a way that is not good. You've got men walking around having relationships with God for you. And Israel just keeps backing up and putting God further and further and further away. Somehow I think on some level Solomon knew this. And he wanted to make a difference. He wanted Israel to be different. So with all the wisdom, the wisest of kings, you hoped that it would be different. That this would be the one. This would be the one that would defy Samuel's reasoning of why Israel should not have a king. And he starts out that way, as one who felt that at least my wisdom has a shot at making Israel all she can be. He says, I applied my mind. Okay, we'll come across that. I applied my mind. But here's the thing he tells you in the book of Ecclesiastes. As I've set all this up, when he writes his memoir, if you will, he says, I, the teacher, when king over Israel. And see, you notice he kind of separates the roles. In other words, he's saying, no other king has been a teacher. No other king has been a Koheleth. Not even my dad was a Koheleth. My dad was a warrior. So if education or however you want to put it, when I, the teacher, was king, he's letting us know this was supposed to be different. I wanted it to be different. I really did. He said, I applied my mind to seek and to search out by wisdom all that is done under heaven. And it is an unhappy business that God has given to human beings to be busy with. This is why the book of Ecclesiastes is not going to be on a self-help book. It's not going to be on a self-help list. It's not going to be a bestseller. All the wealth, all the power, wisest man that ever lived. I applied my mind, and guess what? It all pretty much stinks. There's a void in this world. I'm making fun of it. But the teacher isn't. The Koheleth isn't. He's reminding us there's a void in this world. There's something missing that can't be fixed. Not by wisdom, not by wealth, not by all the deeds done under the sun. It can't be fixed, no matter how it's applied. Solomon represents the absolute peak, if you will, of human ability. And when he tried to put all of that human ability to work, he found out there's something still missing in this world. There's something still missing. There's something crazy. There's a madness that makes even trying to apply wisdom a chasing after the wind, he says. What could be the greatest tool in the human arsenal is even a curse in this world. And this is how he puts it. I saw that all the deeds that are done under the sun and sea, all is vanity and a chasing after the wind. What is crooked cannot be made straight, and what is lacking cannot be counted. Wow. That's all there is, he says. That's it. It can't be counted. This absolute madness, if you will, that even the best that human beings have to offer can't do anything for it. Can't do anything with it. I've said to myself, I've acquired great wisdom, surpassing all who were over Jerusalem before me. My mind has had great experience of wisdom and knowledge, and I applied my mind to know wisdom and to know madness and folly. And I perceive that this also is a what? A chasing after the wind. See, that doesn't send you out rocketing into the world as if you just attended a great self-help seminar, right? Listen to what he's saying. Listen to what he's saying. And he says, for in much wisdom is much what? Vexation. It's the Hebrew word for anger. So it's what do human beings normally do when they're vexed? We get frustrated. In other words, we get what? We get angry. The Hebrew knows this. And that's why the translators translate it not as anger, but as vexation. JPS translation says this, for as wisdom grows, vexation grows. The wiser you get, guess what? The more vexed you will be. The more frustrated you will be. To increase learning is to increase heartache. Oh my goodness. This is what Solomon has found. Now, I don't think Solomon is referring to everyday increasing knowledge and education. If your child or grandchild brings this verse home to you and says, the wisest man in the world says, we shouldn't go to school anymore, because the more we learn, the more we're going to be vexed. Okay? I don't think he's talking about ordinary learning, because remember who's writing it, right? This is not a king warrior. This is a king teacher. This is the Koheleth. This is the assembler, if you will. Okay? So I know Solomon is referring to something else. The teacher, the preacher, and all he wanted to accomplish. So let's look a little bit, as the Koheleth is writing and remembering what he's doing, look a little bit at what the Bible says about his history, about what he says about his reign. Okay, what he did, all right? In 1 Kings 3, it's described this way. Solomon said, you've shown great and steadfast love. He's speaking to God. To your servant, my father David, because he walked before you in faithfulness, in righteousness, and in uprightness of heart toward you. You've kept him for this great and steadfast love, and have given him a son to sit on his throne today. Oh, now, O Lord, my God, you've made your servant king in place of that. Although I'm only a little child, I don't know how to come out or go in. He could have faked it, couldn't he? He could have taken all the wealth and the power that was given to him. He could have rode it all the way on David's coattails. He could have ruled just fine. But he wanted to be different. He wanted it to make a difference. And here, maybe the most powerful man in the region right now, sitting on David's throne, is actually confessing that he doesn't know anything. I'm a kid. I don't know what I'm doing. And your servant is in the midst of the people whom you've chosen, a great people so numerous they cannot be numbered or counted. Give your servant, therefore, an understanding mind to govern your people, able to discern between good and evil. For who can govern this? Your what? Your great people. He wants to make a difference. A king can be somebody, more than somebody, who just lives out his reign staying on the throne. Who just lives out his reign on this and lives out his selfishness on the backs of his people. He could be more than this, he's saying. I know I could be more than this. So I'm going to apply everything you give me, Lord, in order to do it. How did he do? How did he do? I said to myself, now that he looking back, he said, I said to myself, come now, I'll make a test of pleasure. Enjoy yourself. But again, this is also what? This is also vanity. He's accomplished great things up until then, what he's built, what he's done. He constructed the Milo. Basically, he took a mountain and filled in a valley to make it another mountain. This was his idea. We should fill this in and we should make this livable. Modern Jerusalem sits on the foundation that Solomon dug for it. That's amazing. 3,000 years ago. He did it. He builds the temple, he builds the palace, and he makes Jerusalem a place that truly, truly, a place in the world that people are coming to see. And they're coming not just to see what he's done, they're coming just to sit with him, right? Queen of Sheba comes not to see Jerusalem, she comes to see who? I came to see you. I've heard about you, right? So he said, all right, now that I've done this, I'll give pleasure a try. Just a little bit. I'll give pleasure a try. But also this is what? This is vanity. Every time that we come across this week, vanity of vanities, all is vanity, is what he's saying. You can actually say hopelessness, hopelessness. All is without hope and hopeless, is exactly what he's saying. Vanity is a King James era word that doesn't quite hold the weight today that it did back then. And it's truly, truly, utterly hopelessness. Not just being enamored with the person in the mirror. That's what vanity has become today. But in King James' day, vanity truly led to nothing because it was absolutely hopeless. Hopeless. And I said of laughter, it is what? It's mad. And of pleasure, what use is it? I've done everything I can even to be pleasurable because I'm not getting done. Something isn't getting done that I want to get done, and my wisdom is doing squat about it. And he's vexed and he's frustrated. So he turns to pleasure to try to forget it. And he says, I find out even this is what? Vanity. I searched with my mind how to cheer my body with wine, my mind still guiding me with wisdom, how to lay hold of folly until I might see what was good for mortals to do under heaven. He's actually saying, I'm doing it in order maybe to be able to prescribe it to alleviate some of the suffering that I see. It's pretty interesting, isn't it? I'm going to party to see if it helps you. All right? I don't really want to. But I want to see if it'll help you. Just to do something good for mortals, because what he comes across, what he sees, is something that he can't fix. So we talk about Solomon being a partier, but listen what he's saying. I'm the king. I'm exploring everything I'm supposed to explore in order to make it better for the people I'm supposed to rule. Wine to cheer his body. Note, his mind still guided by wisdom, by the way. His mind still guided by wisdom, he turns to what? He turns to wine. Okay? If his wisdom is vexing him, if it's angering him, if it's frustrating him, it might as well escape. To lay hold of folly. You have to admit there's a human logic to this that can't be refuted, is there? It can't be. And by the way, had he had access to any of our modern ways to escape, what do you think would have happened to him? Name one and insert it here, right? But I'll stay with this one for just a second. I'll stay with alcohol, and I'll stay with alcoholism. Of the thousands, if you will, today of addictions and habits and hang-ups that we all have, by the way, that we all have, and what we rely on to get through the day, if you will, I want to stick with this one for right now. Would you be surprised to talk to anybody who has battled an addiction of the amazing amount of people that are in it that are actually geniuses? See, a lot of people think that alcoholism and drug addiction has to do with intelligence. But you'd be surprised how many alcoholics are on Mensa or in Mensa. You know why? It doesn't have anything to do with wisdom. Solomon found that out, didn't he? Doesn't have anything to do with wisdom. Addiction is a demon that wisdom can do nothing about. You can't think your way out of this. As a matter of fact, I think wise people, smart people, if you will, intelligent people, have a harder time in dealing with their addiction because their intelligence begins to stand in the way and enables them to continue to deny what they have to admit. And what they have to admit is, I am out of control. Their wisdom may even give them an idea that they're still in control. And as long as they are still in control, they will never, ever enter recovery. So this isn't just about wanting to party. I think the Koheleth is going much deeper here. The Koheleth is a human, and he understands what it means to be a human. So wisdom's still trying to teach that we can think our way out of this. That if somebody smart would come along, they could fix problems. They could do this. And his wisdom was of no use in discerning this evil from good. Absolutely no use. Okay? I made great works. I built houses and planted vineyards for myself. I made myself gardens and parks and planted them in all kinds of fruit trees. Made my what? Myself. I made myself pools from which to water the forest of growing trees. Wisdom could not keep what every king seeks to do, to begin to indulge themselves with the power of their kingdom and with the wealth of their kingdom. Notice how he says it. I accomplished great things, but I did it all for who? I did it all for myself. I happened to be reading in 2 Kings this morning, and when Solomon took rule, it says that he appointed governors, 12 governors to be in Israel. And I'm thinking to myself, man, that is cool, right? That is cool. A representative form of government. He wants to be in touch with the people. I'm thinking enabling, empowering leaders. I'm thinking of all those things. And then there's the line that says their only job was to procure food for the palace. That's why he appointed 12 governors. Maybe houses and vineyards and gardens and parks, especially gardens, parks, and forests and orchards, are not a bad idea, right? But he didn't do it for Israel. He did it for him. And also to give the king, any king, the benefit of the doubt, in some, they don't see the difference. Especially when a nation has vicariously given the relationship to you. Right? We don't have to pray to God anymore. As long as our king does, everything's going to be good. Right? So to give them the benefit of the doubt, some of them don't see the difference. Indulging themselves, the palaces, all of that, they don't see the difference. They see it as still doing it for their nation. Especially in a spiritual nation, a religious nation, if you will, where that government is supposed to be founded on a relationship with God. He's been given an impossible role, an impossible task. So maybe that wouldn't be a bad idea, but then also, this is the worst. I don't, the point is that his selfishness to me is not the issue in how it was lived out in these things. It wasn't in the things. It was how he acquired him, how he acquired them. And I don't have any prophetic knowledge of this, but I think that in Solomon's old age, the one thing that began to haunt him was this one issue right this, and this is how he got everything. I bought what? I bought male and female slaves. And I had slaves who were born in my house. I also had great possessions of herds and flocks, more than any who had been before me in Jerusalem. I gathered for myself silver and gold and the treasure of kings and of the provinces. I got singers, both men and women, delights in the flesh, and many concubines. I became great and surpassed all who were before me in Jerusalem. Also my wisdom remained what? With me. He still believes that his wisdom is still living uppermost, even though he's living all of this out. Whatever my eyes desired, I did not keep from them. I kept my heart from no pleasure, for my heart found pleasure in all my toil, and this was my reward for my toil. The Milo, I told you, it's a ridiculous number. It's like 12 million cubic yards of earth moved. But we know he didn't do it. Who did? Millions. Millions. And I really believe this is one of the big things that's haunting the Koheleth as he's dying. There's a very real human cost to his indulgence as king. And this is what Samuel said the real problem with having a king was. That someone will have to pay for this king's indulgence. And in this world, the ones that pay are the have-nots. The ones that can't defend themselves. The ones that don't have the power to do so. The ones that have been defeated in war. Somehow Solomon's wisdom told him that this was supposed to be different. I could do something about this. And he lives his entire reign not being able to. And Ecclesiastes is now looking back. He's telling us what he's going through. And all of it was sanctioned by this gift of wisdom, because his wisdom told him that it was okay. And in the end, this was all he had. This was all he had. So the selfishness and the greed and the lust, it'll be justified by the heavy burden of ruling. A burden God told them 800 years before he wanted no man to have. When you look at people who achieve stratospheric, wealth and power and fame. I don't think it's by accident that they're the most tragic figures in human history. Because I really wonder if any human being was ever meant to be that famous. So Solomon realizes it as he looks back. And this is what he says. I consider all my hands had done and the toil had spent in doing it. And again, all was vanity and a chasing after a wind. There was nothing to be gained under the sun. So I turned to consider wisdom and madness and folly. And for what can the one do who comes after the king? Only what has already been done. All the resources that I believed were of God, I put to use, and I ended up doing only what already had been done. It's all vanity and chasing after the wind because it can't be stopped. It can't be combated. It can't be combated with wisdom, nor with willpower, nor with all human greatness and strength and wealth. So I want you to note the first conclusion as we study this week that Solomon wants us to have is that nature trumps wisdom. Remember I said there's something wrong, right? And there's something wrong that goes so much deeper than what any human can do. And that's our natures. That's our fallenness. That's our selfish nature. And the first thing Solomon is saying about my selfish nature is my wisdom did what? Nothing. Willpower and wisdom trumped by nature. This is the force he's fighting against that he doesn't understand. But after all the years of applying everything that a human being is supposed to apply, and how far has it gotten him? Only what already has been done. That's it, he says. If that's all you're going to rely on, that's all I've got for you, he said. So my people who I've assembled, hear the words of the Koheleth. You're not going to be able to do anything about this. This is something in the core that I can't explain. See, and I can explain it. I can explain it. You know why? Because he happened to write it down. And so did 66 other writers. All told us about this. All told us about what was going to happen when we changed our natures from selfless to selfish. On the day that you eat of it, you shall surely die. There's nothing we can do about it. So, by the way, to jump ahead, what he's going to conclude is this. The end of the matter, all has been heard. Fear God and what? And keep his commandments, for that is the whole duty of everyone. For God will bring every deed into what? Into judgment, including every secret thing, whether good or evil. He's saying, there's nothing I can do about it. I don't know what you guys are going to do. I'm going where? I'm going to God. Even though he knows what's waiting for him. What's waiting for him if he goes to God? Judgment. He said, I got nothing left. I got nothing left. I'm going to God. And that's tragic for Solomon. You know why? Because that's all that's left for him is judgment. Because it's still going to be another couple thousand years before the one who will take that judgment for him will come. See, the reason we find hope in the book of Ecclesiastes is that when we come to God, we don't face judgment as long as we believe in Jesus Christ. We come to God and we find our answer because Jesus has taken this for us and condemned it, and he's given us hope. Even for Solomon, he says this is better than what I got in mind. But if he comes to God before Christ, he may incur judgment. But you and I, we don't have to. We don't have to. See, because I'm not sure exactly what this meant to Solomon. Okay, I'm not sure what it meant. But there's a psalm that his dad wrote that said this. The Lord swore to David a sure oath for which he will not turn back. One of the sons of your body I will set on your throne. If your sons keep my covenant and my decrees that I shall teach them, their sons also forevermore shall sit on your throne. He says that one of my sons will be on the throne and he'll be on it forever. Guess what? It wasn't Solomon. But there is a son of David who's on the throne and will be on the throne forever. And I'm telling you now, I think Solomon somehow knew that. There's something that Solomon knows. There's something that is inside of him that he can't explain. The only way that he has the words to explain it is that I'm going to go to God. I'm going to take me, my deeds, everything that has been done, and I'm going to go to God and I'm going to let God judge them. Because somehow there's something that knows that he's not the one that's going to be on the throne forever. There's going to be another son who's going to be on the throne forever. And look what he's going to accomplish when he does. The covenant. Covenant will be fulfilled. See, I think there was another teacher, another Koheleth, if you will, about 900 years later, who comes across to give the same conclusion. But where to go with it is different between these two Koheleths and these teachers. This Koheleth named Paul puts it this way: for I know that nothing good dwells within me, that is, in my flesh. I can will what is right, but I cannot do it. Isn't this the same thing Solomon was facing? Isn't this the exact same thing Solomon said? I tried to do everything right. I knew what I was supposed to do. But all I met was vexation. This Koheleth understands that dynamic just a little bit, and this is the way that he explains it. I can will what is right, but I cannot do it. For I do not do the good I want, but the evil I do not want is what I do. Now, if what I do not want is and if I do what I do not want, it is no longer I that do it, but what? Sin that dwells within me. This Koheleth understands his nature. So I find it to be a law that when I want to do what is good, evil lies close at hand. For I delight in the law of God in my inmost self. Right? I know what it's supposed to be like. I delight in that. I look inside and I say, yes, yes. But I see in my members another law at war with the law of my mind. Remember? This is the thing that Solomon can't explain. How is it that the wisest, wealthiest, most powerful man in the world can't accomplish good? Paul says, I know what I'm supposed to accomplish, but I what? I can't. As a matter of fact, I don't. Wretched man that I am, who will rescue me from this body of death? To me, that's what Solomon's saying when he says, here is the matter in the end of all things. Fear God. Keep his commandments. This is exactly what he's saying. Wretched man that I am, who will save me from this body of death? Thanks be to God through Jesus Christ our Lord. Couple of amens right there, right? So that with my mind I'm a slave to the law of God, but with my flesh I'm a slave to the law of sin. And remember, chapter 7 doesn't end in chapter 7. It ends in chapter 8, verse 1. Why the guy decided to end the chapter here, I have no idea. What, the guy that wrote the chapter, he did. Paul didn't do this, no. Because Paul used this word, what? Therefore. Therefore, everything that I said, there is now what? There is now no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. See, a self-righteous person will believe that if you're just struggling, if you know what is right and you don't do it, well, you're just a sinner. Those who live in Christ, okay, are not condemned by the struggle. They're not even condemned by anything. If you believe in Jesus, there is what? No condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. Solomon at the end was willing to take it and lay it all at God's judgment, good or evil. And Ecclesiastes, he's going to do probably the best job I've ever heard of somebody confessing everything, laying it out. And herein lies the other thing that I need you to understand is what I believe the book of Ecclesiastes is a complete, absolute confession. And what happens if we confess? Yeah, I know that we debate and we argue, and I've done it too, and that's me. I hate the littleness of my selfish nature at times. I hate the littleness of my humanity. We read Ecclesiastes and we read about Solomon, and all we want to know is whether or not Solomon can be saved. That's why I thank God for the book of Ecclesiastes. Because if this is true right here, then not only did Solomon confess, he left us a record of how to do it when we're supposed to do it. And then you could leave it all at the feet of Jesus. So that's the other thing that we have to understand is I believe Ecclesiastes is Solomon's confession. Because when he said, I'm going to go to God, good and evil, and I'm going to leave it up to him. Isn't that what every Christian is called to do at the foot of Jesus? So if we're voting, I'm going to be happy to walk with Solomon in the kingdom because Solomon was me and I am him. So we get there the same way he did. We confess. We get there the same way he did. We confess. And then we have to conclude what he concluded. Everything here, vanity. All is vanity. My trying to do right, vanity. My not being able to do right, vanity. My thinking what is right even though I'm not able to do it, vanity. Jesus is the only way to remove the vanity of our lives. The only way to remove the uselessness, the hopelessness. Solomon knew it. I think somewhere inside Solomon knew it. And he's trying to let his people know. And I praise God because of Jesus, we are some of Solomon's people too. So welcome to the words of the Koheleth. Welcome to the book of Ecclesiastes. Let's pray. Father, thank you for your love, for your grace. I thank you for wisdom and discernment. I think of all the people in my life who are in my life who walk with me who are as wise as Solomon. And I thank you for all of them. I just ask for everybody here that we are able to safely come to you, to know that we are safe to come to you, to get away from the vanity, to get away from the uselessness, to get away from the madness. And we thank you that when we do, we find no condemnation because of what Jesus has done for us, and what he does for us, and what he continues to do, and what he always will do. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty. We thank you. I ask that you protect this family, that you keep them from harm and from temptation, and that you draw them in this week and you bring them around. And that they know you and your presence and your love. And I ask it all in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you all.